The great big beautiful bill also slashed taxes on millions of American small businesses, including restaurants, dry cleaners, corner stores. What is a corner store? I've never heard that term. I know what a corner store is, but I've never heard it described, a corner store. Who the hell wrote that, please?
Hi again, everybody. It's 5 o'clock in New York. From let them eat cake to what the hell's a corner store, Marie Antoinette, eat your heart out. Precisely the sort of comment one's supporters are happy to dismiss in the best of times, but these are not those. When you're as increasingly unpopular as Donald Trump, it's precisely the sort of comment that stings, sort of like a slap in the face. And that's just the beginning. This week, a no tax on tips photo op included a DoorDash delivery of McDonald's to the White House, courtesy of an Arkansas grandmother with a remarkable backstory. We'll let Trump take it from there.
Earlier this week at the White House, I met a wonderful woman named Sharon Simmons, a grandmother driving DoorDash to help support her husband's cancer treatment. She's got serious cancer. He's going to be okay, I think. Sharon delivered McDonald's to the Oval Office. It was a little bit of a, to be honest, it was a little tacky.
She was a little tacky? Okay. So while those sorts of comments can be grating in the moment, it was, in fact, those who supported Donald Trump in 2024 who are making the larger point on this story. Watch.
How would you bring a grandma that needs to work DoorDash?
Because they're talking about taxation on tips.
Yeah, but pause it for a second. Don't we want to live in a country where grandmas don't have to work DoorDash, where grandmas get to be retired and there's a retirement fund that takes what kind of delusional reality are we living in where he's parading around the grandma that's working DoorDash so she can afford to pay her husband's cancer bills, and he's like, see, we're not doing tips. There's a whole other issue at hand here that we need to be focused on.
Again, I share that evaluation from Andrew Schultz because at the time when he endorsed Donald Trump, it mattered a whole lot. Might have made the difference if people like Andrew Schultz were for Donald Trump in 2024. So the fact that he's against him heading into 2026 matters. It also is important in light of this new reporting from The Atlantic. Quote, these days, a shocking number of the president's supporters have turned against him. Some of Trump's fanboys in the libertarian-leaning manosphere have spent the past year baffled by his actions on the Epstein files, on immigration, and now Iran. In the past week, religious conservatives have been criticizing their once unassailable leader after he posted a photo on social media of himself as Jesus and attacked the Pope, calling the first American pontiff, quote, weak on crime. Some Republican operatives in battleground states told us that they'd rather Trump not campaign too hard for their candidate. Others have seen their small dollar donations plummet. And while we're on the topic of trying to get elected, we'll note it appears lawmakers are likewise anxious about the economy and about Iran. Wall Street Journal reporting this today, quote, while Congress so far has declined to curb the president's war powers, it could just be a matter of time. The margins on the war powers votes have been narrow in both chambers, and some Republicans have suggested their votes could change in a matter of days or weeks. There are 200 days separating the American people from the midterm elections. Plenty of time for Trump to reassemble a fractured coalition, sure, but plenty of time to squander it forever as well. That's where we begin the hour. Writer and editor of Protect Democracy, Amanda Carpenter, is back. Also back with us, president of Media Matters for America, Angelo Carasone, is here. And the author of The Message of the Markets, Substack, Ron Insana, is here with us as well. Let me, Angelo, in sort of our ongoing investigation and scrutiny of the people who I think made the difference in Trump's ability to return to the White House. I played Andrew Schultz. Let me show you where Joe Rogan is putting himself, positioning himself in front of his millions and millions of listeners.
So what do you think of what's going on in Iran?
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
All of it's terrifying. Most people that voted for Trump or wanted Trump to be in office, one of the things that was attractive was this no more wars.
Sure, of course.
And now we're in one of the craziest ones.
Yeah.
And China's flying in cargo planes filled with stuff. We don't know what the in there.
And Russia is giving Iran information about
fun.
where our troops are.
Super fun. Great times.
Oh, it's
Again, I always want the disclaimer that I'm not showing anyone Joe Rogan because he's to be emulated, celebrated, lifted up, or given a paper plate award for anything. I think it's important that the top-rated podcast in America is describing the person he endorsed in the 2024 election this way. And I think it's super important that his 3 million listeners hear this. Quote, Russia is giving Iran information about where our troops are, about where your kids are, about where your husbands and wives and sons and daughters are. Super important that Joe Rogan's audience heard that.
Yeah, it's significant because, he is like, he and, the others sort of in that same category, they're a weather vane for the political zeitgeist. Or, and another way to say it is, would in previous coverage, if this was 10 years ago, there would be like the undecided voters that always get captured in polling. It's sort of the people that don't think about politics first, that are not partisan creatures. They don't just go vote for one party all the time. The very people, as you noted in your intro, that when Rogan sort of didn't just endorse, but made the case. He didn't just bring along his people. He brought along sort of another part of the information ecosystem that shaped the worldview of a lot of new Trump voters. And that's the significant part of all this, because it's an indication of where his audience is, where a lot of the audiences are, and where things are going politically. And that's the first step. And then the second thing is that it sort of reflects on how much power Trump actually has in the moment, because the MAGA media really only works. Trump's narrative dominance only exists if the storytelling engine behind it is unified, if they're all helping reinforce the same story that Trump is telling. But when they are now not, sort of doing the counterspin for Trump, but the main attackers of the story that Trump is telling, it isn't just that they're weakening him by not carrying water for him. They're actually undermining and actively cutting against, they're truth-telling in a way, the story that Trump is telling. And that's sort of the so what of the immediacy. It then creates some potential where the laws of political reality can start to get shaken up again. And that was the other part of your intro, too, where Republicans are not there yet, but they're saying, I don't know, soon enough, we may start to do something different than what the president wants. And that's because they're slower, because they're not weather vanes. They're stuck in a much more partisan sort of strict mold. But ultimately, they are creatures of this political reality, too. And so that, to me, is the significance. They're indicators of where things are at and, more importantly, where it's going.
Amanda, the stain that'll be the second point that Angela's making, that no one expects Republican lawmakers to use their eyes and their ears or their feet to walk around their districts and ask people, how you doing? How you doing? I know your son or daughter or husband or wife is deployed. How are you feeling about that? Or to walk into any business on Main Street and say, how are you feeling? That stain, as Liz Cheney said during the January 6 hearings, that stain will live forever. But that they're not even interested in their own political survivals is to me the black box. What do you make of this moment?
I sort of think that, we talk a lot about MAGA Republicans and the MAGA elite class, which includes, lawmakers and people who are really loyal to Trump. And I think as a condition of political survival through the Trump years, they've had to learn this ability to tune out everything else, right, in order to just go along with the MAGA line. But if you sort of separate those people out and look at, okay, who are the real people, the voters who are in Donald Trump's base that brought him into the White House for, twice. And I sort of put that in two buckets. The first big buckets are just sort of, economically minded Republicans who were happy to support him and ignore a lot of the character flaws because they saw or perceived that the economy was working for them, whether that was in the form of tax cuts, good employment numbers, et cetera. That is sort of being put down by the high gas and grocery prices that we are seeing right now, in large part due to his unnecessary reckless war in Iran. So this is sort of like puncturing a lot of those bubbles. And there's a lot of people who voted for Trump that were happy to go along with him because a part of that good economy meant world stability. I mean, the burn that this country feels in the aftermath of our wars in the Middle East, and, a big reason Obama was elected and Trump was elected also is to sort of put that era behind us. And suddenly he's returning us to that. And then we're unclear about the reasons why. And so I think that has a lot to do with his disapproval numbers. But then also, you cannot discount this. the people of faith who were happy to support Trump, even if they didn't believe that he was a believer, but they appreciated the gestures that he made to the community, whether he meant it or not, they took it at face value and acted upon it. But now these posts that you're seeing put that, like, you cannot believe that anymore. When he's posting pictures of himself as Jesus, J.D. Vance is lecturing the Pope about theology. And so I just think you see a lot of these reality bubbles being punctured in a way that those two big buckets of people can't ignore.